Hi guys, my name is Maria, and we are back with another episode of the SF show where we savor the flavor. If this is your first time here, guys, welcome. And if you were here with us in the first episode, welcome back. It's good to be here again. So thank you for everyone who is joining us. So you may have noticed that I'm taking the lead in today's episode, and the reasons for this will hopefully become a little bit clear later in the show. But before that, I'm going to let my wonderful co-hosts introduce themselves. Sam?
Yo, hello everyone. Remember me? It's time to play again. So the name's Samuel, masculine sensory, feminine DE, SEFE, play, consume, blast, sleep. And that's my name.
Nice. Manuel?
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome back or welcome. So Emmanuel, double feminine, SIFE, blast, sleep, play, consume. And happy to be with you again in this show.
Lovely. And Hannah?
Yeah, welcome back from me as well. I'm Hannah, double feminine, SIFI, sleep, blast, play, consume.
Brilliant. Lovely. Well, I am double feminine, SCFI, consume, play, sleep, blast. So putting together the first episode last time was fun. You guys, we had such an interesting discussion, and it would be nice for us all to just touch base and briefly just share our key takeaways or learning points with the tribe. So I'm gonna start with myself. So this is just basically how I concluded in my mind what SF is and like what it's doing. During our discussion, I heard a lot of words like wants and needs like buzzing around really frequently, and it just helped me to see the function of the function. And so what I like came up with was that, you know, we are kind of respecting the fact, with the feeding function, we're kind of like respecting the fact that to motivate or like move me or the tribe, you know, if you're Hannah or Emmanuel or Sam, then certain conditions need to be first met, which is kind of what like the prioritizing is. So I think with the kind of the contrast of the T function, you know, to be of any like T use, then you need to move me or the tribe chemically by addressing so and so first. And that's just how I've been seeing it. And for Hannah and me, it's kind of like self-fulfilling, and then for Sam and Emmanuel, it's kind of like meeting the tribe's needs. In terms of like the sensory function, and what I understand is that we all kind of have this need to like preserve or fall back or to like revert back to like the core or the essence of being. So we use a lot of words like how it's supposed to be and primal level and biology, and we are just not in the business of like moving beyond or seeing past like the fundamentals. Like when push comes to shove, we really just want to like reduce something to its like atom or its like simplest form. And that's just kind of how I was seeing it. So yeah, Sam, what were your takeaways from the last session?
First, I have to say, such a lovely blast. Did a good job.
Thank you.
I guess for me, the thoughts that came to my head, and I'm trying to keep it nice and sweet, is you've heard the phrase, everyone does everything. And that's how I first see it, because I'm beginning to see that even though I'm SF, I do see I am the other temperament, but it's just in an order of which ones I do first. And when it comes to us in the whole terms of SF, imagine like you have a clay. That's just SF in general. And then when I mold it, it becomes a gun. When you mold it, it becomes a sword. Hannah molds it, becomes a shield. And when Emmanuel molds it, it becomes a bow and arrow. And that's kind of how I see the SF in general, which also links me to going, okay, Emmanuel uses it like a bow and arrow. I'm just going to have to slow my thoughts down, and then I can start to use it like that. So I kind of think it's good for people to remember that there is no embodiment. No one is really the one SF. It really is. We just primarily use that as the flavor first, the first flavor. And when I look at you guys, I'm like, oh, I didn't know I could use it that way. That's just another way to use it. That's me done.
Nice. And I like the analogy of the bow and arrow thing.
Thank you.
Hey, Emmanuel?
Yeah, so I didn't do the really overview of the last show. Just just the little specific things that I took out from it. It was the understanding of, safety and self-preservation and survival mode that I did connect to my identity. And then I realized with Hannah that because we don't have the same functions in identity, that it was more connected to the SI. So that was very interesting. And I see that because everything that we made since this day made us alive, why would we change something? We might die somehow. So it was to understand how it is a mechanism of rejecting the collecting in the sensory somehow, like, but I don't, this could endanger me. So it was very nice for me to put those mechanism in another spot, in another place. So that bring that into my mind. And that few more things that I want to work on, and just was very interesting. So yeah, I did have some takes away. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Hannah?
Yeah, I thought about very similar things as you, Maria. I looked at it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. Basically what you said, that we always fall down to kind of the basics, and to me that's like the lower ended needs, the base needs, which makes sense. Then I also looked at chakras, because I feel like they're kind of similar. It's all the same concepts. And something else that I realized was also similar to what Sam said, I think just before, is that we are we can do everything in the sense that we are the SF show, but we are not SF. Like, we are not the SF, because we also talked about how the identity, even if the SF has an introverted aspect or whatever, it doesn't necessarily sit in the SF. And I never really thought about it that way. So that was kind of interesting. So it sparked a lot of interesting questions and research topics for the future. Yeah. And a lot of new show ideas.
Yeah, hopefully it's a lot that we can use moving forward. So that's really, really great. Thanks, Hannah. So if anyone from the tribe, or if anyone who's watching has any of their thoughts on the takeaways, don't be shy. Leave a comment down below and join in on the conversation.
And subscribe.
And subscribe. So before we jump in on the main discussion today, we just want to take a moment to share some love with you all and just shout out. So Hannah, in particular, I know you had some shout outs.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Yono. Yono, thanks for your encouraging feedback. And maybe we can do a crossover at some point. And the second shout out is to Nina. Nina, you know who you are. You put in some really thoughtful questions that were really interesting to read. And we actually decided to pick up the topics that you brought up for the next episodes. So thank you for the thoughtful question.
Thank you. I just want to do a shout out to Dexterous90 in the YouTube comments. I just thought your feedback was really nice, and we see you and we appreciate you. And yeah, does anyone else have any other shout outs?
I've got one. I'm going to shout out myself, Samuel. You're awesome. And I'm going to shout out Griff, who we have the Demon OI talks, and his SF is coming up. So he's been very educational in me understanding some SI, FI, and SF in general. So peace out to him.
Nice. Thank you to me, myself, and I. That was oh, good. Emmanuel, any shots?
Yeah, well, for the tribe, the feedbacks, they were very encouraging, and so thanks. We appreciate. I do appreciate a lot, and thanks for the French talking community too, that are very engaged and supporting me in this exercise of doing show in English. And yeah, thank you guys.
Great. Okay. So we are starting a 4-part series where we're going to be exploring how our respective SF animals relate to each other. So to kickstart this series, we'll be putting Sam in the hot seat today and grilling him to understand how a lead like SF Play interacts with SF Blast, SF Consume, and SF Sleep, and then vice versa. So, Sam, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm just getting my notes. That's all.
Sweet.
Other issues. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm going to just kind of like open up the discussion with a generic question. I know you've talked a little bit about how you're seeing our animals, and you've like used certain descriptive words to like mention like how you're seeing it. So do you mind sharing that with everybody, like what you're seeing in terms of our animals and like the words that you've used?
Okay, so I kind of had to redo it again. I guess I made it a bit more ST for me, or NT at the same time. And so effectively, SF Consume, I'm going to have to read it. Like SF in general is what, no. SF in general is the first and foremost is what is valuable or what is chemicals. So let's go with chemicals. What is and chemicals, because it's in relation to anything sensory and how it's relating to the human being's chemicals. And that can incorporate values and feelings and such, because everything is at your chemical state in your head. So Shannon giving that term chemicals, I think that was primarily the best way to go about it, because it encompasses everything. So you first understand that. Therefore, for you, SF Consume, I use gathering what is for utility of on one's own distinct chemicals, because by your SF Consume, you're gathering. But everything that you're gathering is linked to your supposedly FI. And the FI being introverted, it's personal to you. So that's why I say distinct chemicals, because it's unique to your situation. And then we have SF Blast from Emmanuel, which is Emmanuel, basically of one's own distinct what is for utility of tribes chemicals. So for her, the what is of distinct is basically her own personal SI, because she's taken her own knowledge on specific sensory and then controlling the tribe for the utility of their chemicals, utility being benefits, certain whatever, just for that way. And then we have Hannah, which is SIFI, which is of one's own distinct what is, refined by utility of personal chemicals. So again, she's doing the whole distinct on the specific sensory world and then refining it because it's going to be unique to her. That's why she will cut away as what OI does. And similar to you with the FI, it's her own personal chemicals, which makes her have anything in the sensory world. It's unique to her own feelings and it has a utility for it for that way. So that's how I see that. And then my one was basically, and what I found kind of interesting is I went through everyone else before I could understand myself being a sleep last. So gathering what is based on curious utility of tribe chemicals, because basically I'm looking at in the sensory world and seeing how it's relating to human beings in some way, shape or form. And I'm just taking it in, which then on a side part, you could say, what am I doing with it? And I can see two ways. I can see the DE side and the DI side. The DE side is basically, there's something you're interested in. I've collected some stuff over the time. This might be of benefit for you. I can give you a nice experience. And then on the DI side for me, it's like, okay, it kind of helps my NT story path in the sense that, okay, I need to get organized, as I would talk about it in this particular way. I've seen all the best SF organized systems. I'm going to use that one. And then as I understand it, I'm going to customize it more for myself. And that's the kind of whole spiel of how I see the SF animals broken down.
Damn, Sam.
I
was looking for like a really simple answer, but you just went in on that. That was like, you really understood the assignment there. Like, you went in. Oh, God, that's some good sleep processing. That's great. Anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, I had a question, but I already forgot it. Oh yeah, what did you said? You used the words SF system. What did you mean by that? Because
So what I mean is that everything that I do to walk forward in my life and such, and things that I want to do, I always look for what is the best, and then I take what's best and I customize it to myself. So I guess I was literally talking about in the segment of the SF play that everything that I see, I have two ways that it gets funneled. There's either for the tribe and there's for myself. So if the tribe's got a problem, I'm like, oh, that's good. That's the best one, because I see that's working the best because people seem to value it, or it's popular in some way. So then I throw it to the person. Maybe you should look into this. And then for myself, it's like right now, I use Notion a lot, and I'm trying to find out like how to do specific stuff. I'll go on YouTube, just do a bit of personal consume for myself and find out, okay, this seems to be kind of like the best thing to do from the comments and such. And then I will apply it to my own situation. That's what I meant.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
very interesting. Sometimes I wish I could just like jump into your little sleep brain, because it sounds so like intricate and detailed. Like it's impressive.
Thank you.
I have a question. So you were talking about how you have your own measurements, in the system, that you bring the blocks and you have an analyze of what is needed for the tribe. So I would relate this analyze more on the T spectrum, but with the play, you interact with the tribe, with the chemicals, with the smiles and the words of encouragement. What is your perception on this this step that you're taking from your analyze and into what you bring into the world, the smiles, the word of yeah, let's go? And how do you regulate the level of I'm going to smile more, or I'm going to be more supportive, and I'm going to put some more chemicals right here or right now? Do you have an inside calculation of, oh, it's not enough, or it's too much, or I need to push it? Or is it just you are doing it and that's it, and you don't have a look at it? Or do you see where I'm going? And
it's a good question.
So,
a very good question. Yeah.
I understand this. You're asking me, how do I kind of play and emotionally work with, interact with people, and how I use it for my own, not my own personal agenda, but how I use SF play, basically. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, your SF play. Yeah, the chemicals, the level of chemicals. What is your analysis of it? How do you look at it?
Okay, where do I start? I think fundamentally what it is that I'm paying a lot of attention to the facial features of someone in general. So I think if this is true, when I first started doing SF play from young as a kid, it's more so I'm paying attention to your facial features and how you're behaving, but I don't necessarily know where it's going to go, which I think made me a bit nervous. And then as I begin to gather more data, there is an NI developing in my head, whether I realize it or not, because I know that the NI has actually been there my whole life, but I just don't pay attention to it. And so when I'm interacting with someone, there's something in my head, okay, this is a new scenario between me and them. On the common denominator, most people could be nervous in that area. So I'm going to kind of do stuff to make you feel at ease. And it's going to start off with very, very like small talk. Then I know unconsciously, but still consciously at the same time, while I'm throwing things in and I'm observing how you're behaving, it's giving me like little F blips on how you're responding. Blip up is a good one. Blip down is a negative. So therefore, if the conversation blips down and keeps blipping down, it's not good. But if it blips up, it's what I want it to do. But however, I want little blips of going down to go up, because I know things are a roller coaster in emotions, because on a separate side, it's always a push and pull that humans want. So as I talk to someone, I begin to see where they light up. And if they light up in that area, then I lean into that. But then also, I think there's a part of me that's paying attention, which has happened from gathering over the years of DE plus F, which I think you'll understand as well, is that because it's my F is attached to the DE, and I think the DE, especially in a most healthy DE people, is you're kind of like the mother or father to other people. So therefore, if they're doing something and then they start to feel a bit negative, I will try and emotionally bump them up of not to be detrimental on oneself, which naturally makes them open up more towards me, and I get to gather in more from the sort of play side. So because of that in natural nature that I think I've been doing since my whole life, if I was to keep processing this forward, which we're talking about, I could probably categorize how one should be in every situation, depending on like the features and how you move and how you talk, to get the ideal win-win situation for me and them. So
okay. So just so I understand, so the sensory that you're gathering is facial expressions, tones of voice, and that gives you an indication of where the vibe is based on those details. Is that correct?
Yeah. So first is I'm just picking up sensory stuff, and that's just the SC side. And then, excuse me, because of my decider axis, extroverted feeling, that sensory is related to the feeling side. See where I'm coming from. And therefore, as you know, with SC NI, once it builds up on something, and I do have NI, it starts to categorize stuff. Right. Hence, when I start vibe playing, even though it's SF, in terms of gathering, there's a bit of an NF side to it. Like someone does something funny, like this happened recently, and I'd be like, oh, the force is strong with you. And you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. It's like, oh, you're a special person. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You kind of don't know, but you gather what I mean by that because it's based on all this SC data. And then I found like the commonality. So then when I do interact with them, it's based on something that's linked to every single human being in general, because I've found the one DNA slot where we all kind of unite on.
Right. I have a follow-up. So when you're talking about basically the up and down of the vibes, have you noticed any patterns in the way our vibes go up and down based on my animal, Hannah's animal, Emmanuel's animal? Like, what patterns are you seeing with how our vibes
Okay,
move?
So the biggest contrast I have right now, I think, is from the make it the observer side, the ESSPs compared to the ISTJs in the terms of the FI with the S. So like you, I feel like even though we're all SF, you're closer to me than they are, not because of the FI. Not because of the FI, because of the SC. So like when we have banter, it's rude banter because we both get it, but you just, this sounds bad.
I know, it always goes down that direction. Not even intentional, but it just goes that. we
actually have a similar humor, but I think because of the SC, like, and the way that we look at the world, that frequency wavelength is very similar on that side. Whereas when I talk with Emmanuel's going to be a bit of a unique one because she's hard to catch most of the time because I don't interact with her. She's very busy blasting out in the world. But from the way I talk with Hannah, and there's other few SF, SI, FIs that I've talked with in general, it feels like it's more stable in general, the frequency wave. But then when it blips hard. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I joke around, like I say the SIFIs, they're freaks. Yeah. Gonna come at me. But I guess I'm just looking at the SF side and I'm like, wow. Because it's concentrated energy, whereas mine, it's the same amount of energy, but it's spanned out. Do you see where I come? Yours is spanned out in certain areas, but then there's a concentration. Whereas the SIFIs, it's like concentrated, if that makes sense, on that side. So it's like it does move, but then when it wants to go in on something, it goes in. Whereas Emmanuel's one, the frequency wave or whatever we're talking about, it's an interesting one for me because I'm like, if you have like a man and a woman dancing with one another, we both dance in the very same similar etiquette way with the FETI side. So she will say stuff that makes 100% sense to me, but then it's like the SI side kind of just, it switches it. So I don't know many SI FEs right now, so I'm still kind of formulating that one. But it's like whenever she talks in general, it's like, oh, she's not telling me off, but it's like, I've got you on the FE side, so you're going to understand that, so you know better. And then I start to feel a bit more chaotic in general, like, oh yeah, I really am causing some chaos because we both have the respect for the FE side.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's coming out. So the stereotype is like, she's the mother, I'm the father, in terms of like, if you got a kid.
Yes, Daddy.
Sorry,
where is this going?
No, she's being silly.
We don't know. Sorry, I had to. Sorry.
She's being silly. Like, yeah, not that type of daddy. Yeah, that's a different story. That's for our adult SF show, which may. No, I'm joking. There's no adult. But in the sense, like, you know, when you have a kid and you got the father being like, you're going to get us in trouble if you tell your mum about this. It's kind of like that. Because my SE is open with it, no holds barred, but she's like, no, I don't think we should do it this way and that way. And that's how I see her concoction for now.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. That's really interesting. I have another quick question. So I imagine like the SF play, you are the most equipped to deal with the sudden changes in like frequency of the SF, but like, how does the contrast of the frequencies based on animals, how does it like affect you? Like, do you find it like harder to deal with certain types of frequencies, or are you able to just kind of like go with the flow?
Okay, I think there's a little bit linked to what I said before, but it's going to go like this. With the SEFIs, I'm like, you guys are kind of wild, but yeah, that's just how it comes across. But because we both are quick in the SE side, like it's like we're running around really quick with one another. So there's a fast-paced interaction. Everyone with SEFI, even it's like, yo, we're both dudes, but I don't even think it's the dude because of the F side. It's just the SE best, and that side. And then with I'm going to save Hannah for last, but yeah, so with Emmanuel's side, it's like I didn't even know that you could use sensory to control people like that, because the FE side is like, okay, we're both paying attention, but I'm more like, okay, I'm going to make you feel good with a wealth of experiences. Like, you can have some of this, you can have some of that, you can have some of this. We've got a buffet. Just pick what you like. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Where she's like, I recommend the pizza alla dante. Like, and I'm like, whoa, it's actually refined. That's how it comes across.
Not the voice.
But that was also combining with Chris. I think he's Blast Last, like a ENTP, is that what it is? I think so. And his SF, when he was explaining the importance of it, I was like, oh, that's what you're kind of doing with it. So to see SF in a this is what's good for you kind of format, I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense. And then this is from the Hannah's types. Nothing, I have to say like this first because it's going to sound like it's negative, but when I first hear them, it's like I'm on crack. So my frequency wave is like, and then when I meet them, all of a sudden I have to go, start slowing down. And naturally it calms me, but I don't want to slow down. So I'm hearing them talk. And I'm also laughing to myself because I'm like, wow, this is slow as hell, man. This and that and this and that.
Oh, bless you.
Like
Oh, embarrassing.
no, it's not, but you'll hear the benefit as well, because like they got my head and like, Sam, slow down, man. Look at this piece of cloth. I like this perfect piece of cloth, and this is why it's refined. And then when I start paying attention, I'm like, oh crap. Now there's the best within the best, because I've been doing the overall gathering, but now there's an SEFE world in my head within the refined sensory, because there's categories within the categories. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm already taking what I think is the best of the best of the best. But then if I'm taking the best of the best in the best, that makes the SF even more refined. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know there was a whole world in there. And then that starts getting from the SI people, it starts getting transferred into NI in my head, because there was something that I was discussing with Griff. I was like, the more I pretend to act like an SI, that's how I get my NI. And that's what I learned from the SI FI and SI FE, because you're so sensory with it. It's like, okay, step by step, step by step, step by step. So I copy that because I have the SE, because I'm like a bird that just picks up the crumbs and then it transfers into NI. So it's like with you, the SEFE, it's like, yeah, it's cool. Let's go. We go fast. Oh, you're a bit more refined in that stuff. Cool. With Emmanuel, it's this is why this is important. I'm like, okay, I can take that sensory and slow down with it and really help people in the specific sensory way, which happens with my PT side. And then the SIFI, I'm like, well, I've never really thought about what actually makes me feel really good in general. So I'm like, oh, you learn something new every day.
Can we continue on this tangent of your FI? Can you expand on, have you noticed that you have an FI, and what has it been like thinking about your FI or trying to get into the space of your own FI?
Yeah, before we get into that, Sam, I just want to say I'm just a bit conscious of time. So yeah, maybe you can like quickly go into that.
Yeah, I guess it's the whole chameleon effect. If I go, okay, I'm gonna try and pretend to be like you people, then it starts to see that I have observers in it. So like I have certain FIs about stuff, video games, food. Oh man, this is harder than I thought. Motorcycles, but I can tell you I like it, but then it just naturally translates into a TI. But I can see I really enjoy this, so I'm like, you kind of FI the T stuff. That's what I do. That's what it kind of feels like. So like I love bodybuilding, but obviously I get to do some kind of SF stuff about it. But it's not even like that. I value the characteristics of determination and the OI side. That's what I really value about it. And because I value that, that's why I'm like, okay, if I value that, I have to do this really important, because if I don't stack it up right, I'm not embodying the attributes that I really value. So, but I just look at it from the T side. So I'm like, okay, if I do it from the T side, that's why it means I value that, because why would I pay attention into the systematic workings of it if I didn't appreciate it in the first place? So that's kind of some weird FI/TI kind of thing. And yeah.
So it sounds like the TIs just are taking it one step further. Like you've got the FI, but you're taking it one step further and just done doing the FI.
Not potentially, but I don't want to dive too deep into that because we got other stuff to go through. But yeah, it's something like that. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna use my bodybuilding example. It's like I saw someone in good shape, like I've always said a long time ago, and I was like, wow. But I saw the abstract connections of certain characteristics. I want those characteristics of determination, grit, focus, discipline. So I'm like, okay, those are the nouns, but I need to do the verbs of them. So to embody those, I must do the doing things, which becomes the TI side. For me to be determined or consistent, I have to do these things. So even though I value being determined or consistent, I know valuing consistency is not enough. I have to be meticulous with the actual process, and that's what gives me the end result.
I have a question too regarding you play, because you said earlier that you interact with people and seeing the vibes and trying to put the vibe up.
Yeah.
By doing that, you are observing the person, and you are putting, and I see you all the time putting the lights on others, and you did it so many times in this show, talking about us others.
Yeah.
But as doing that, you are the one that is shining somehow, because you are the one that put the tribe at ease. So all the looks can be on you. How do you take that in consideration? How do you live with that? I'm thinking about the ones that are more on the introvert side, that have play maybe lower and that want to do that, but how do you handle having the lights while you take responsibility for the vibe of the tribe?
Damn, Emmanuel, you got some good questions.
Well,
yeah, I got some help from the tribe to prepare the show.
Shout out to the tribe.
Shout out.
I say it's really hard, but you know, I've got tough shoulders, so I just do what I do. But I think I don't even think about that, because I think because I'm the sleep last as well, double activated DE, it's a bit more unconscious, where I'm just like focusing on the people. So even when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't look at it that way, but naturally it does. So obviously I'm always naturally gonna defer that away unconsciously, but I'll say thank you, because I guess in some sense it's like I can see I'm being some type of cosmic mother or father in people's emotions. I can see that now, like when I'm in groups of people, like as I'm talking, I'm like, okay, we're in a group of people here. Feelings, everyone wants good. No, everybody individually wants good chemicals. But then because I'm the FE side and I'm talking, I'm engaging with Maria, I don't want Hannah or Emmanuel to feel left out. So I've got to give them a little bit. And then I start juggling it. And I think I've been doing that all the time, because I've noticed when I'm in groups of people and I'm comfortable, it's like I wouldn't say I respond better, but it's kind of easy for me to go, okay, if I get these talking and these talking and these talking, then eventually it starts to build momentum, and then they all feel good, and then they all start dancing with each other, and then I'm like, oh, I've done my job, I can relax, because the vibe is perfect. But when it gets awkward, then I'm like, oh, sugar. Then I got to work it, and it's kind of iffy. So once that's what I'm paying attention to, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing it for reward. It's just, I think it's just the unconscious version of me wanting to do it. Because I've noticed, this is going to sound a bit more bro-ish, but there was a guy who was telling me that he's getting work going into the dating world. I'm like, okay, that's good. And he's talking about he was seeing a lady, and I'm like, oh, I'm curious, can I see her? Because I want sensory too. And then when I saw the chick, and I was like, unconsciously on the SEFE area, I'm like, right, she's actually a really good looking chick. And then from a guy point of view, I'm like, you've done really well. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well done, bro. Like, you hit my. It's funny. I know it's funny, but like, take the immaturity out on the what I think is the SF spectrum of knowing what people value. He's now gone to here, and I of course want him to be good because he's gone to that level. I'm like, yo, do you know what this means? You have game to get that. And he's like, yeah, cheers, just doing what I want to do. Which, funny enough, I think he's an NE guy. And I was just like, I started getting happy for him. I was like, yes, man, crouching tiger, don't have that dragon. And it's funny, but he's like, I could see it in his face. He's like, oh, yeah, really? Cheers? Yeah, man. And he's like, I'm going to take more of how it goes. And it's almost like some type of dad going, well done, son, you've done well. He's going to run off and come back and tell me more about it. So yeah,
that's joke.
So what happens if you are in interaction with someone that you see there is no matching, no common points, no like nothing in common, even you're like, oh, this one is boring. And how do you do your job as play?
Just try and be polite, and then eventually we're just gonna move away because you're not giving me anything, which then means animalistically I'm not doing my unconscious role, and now I don't feel good about myself. Why would I want to be around you? Which is kind of what happens. Which actually, there's actually a interesting stories. It comes across wrong. There's a lady I know in work who just trains there, and I'm just being friendly to people in general. Sometimes talk with her a couple of times, and then she gives me a bit of emotion. She's always got the unapologetic bitch face. Maybe that's just her normal face in general. But as I'm wanting to do my FE stuff, she's not like responding to the point where she's even giving me weird looks. And I'm like, whoa, you've offended my FE. I'm just being nice to you. You know what? I kind of don't want to be around you. But part of me is like, you know what, Sam? Kill them with kindness. That's what I do. And I'm just going to carry on for the sake of one, there's a little bit of an ego inside of me, like, be rude to me. I'm just being nice to you. But two, I don't want to do a negative and a negative. When I see her, I'll still greet her and I'll be polite and I'll just keep it rolling because you never know what she's going through. So, yeah, there you go.
That's beautiful.
Nice.
That's amazing. And I'd love to talk about this more, but we're kind of running out of time. So we're going to have to wrap it up there. But yeah, thanks so much, Sam. This was really insightful. I took a lot from this, and hopefully everybody else takes a lot from this as well. I'm probably going to need about 6 to 12 months recovery after all this blasting that I've done today. I'm just kidding. But if you like the content from today, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We won't bite much, but if you have any feedback for us, constructive or otherwise, leave us a comment down below. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys next time.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Call me.
Bye.